All right, we have the recording on, and this is Rhonda, and I'm a librarian. I'm happy to have Lucy and anybody else who shows up during this presentation. You can stop and start and talk to me anytime you want. This is slightly formal, but very informal, because I'd like you to get something out of it. What we're talking about today is databases. We're going to go over the anatomy of the databases. I'm going to talk a little bit about keywords, truncation, phrase searching, and Boolean logic with an emphasis on keywords because I want to show you kind of when I'm doing my research how I set things out and put it together. And right now you may think, well, I don't have a project quite like that, but you will have a project like that. And I kind of want you to kind of get in the keyword mind because a lot of times we're going to research the whole thing that cracks everything open will be the words. And then I'm going to go through 5 databases, a fairly fast overview, but I consider this a really complete package. I'm going to be talking about Proquest, opposing viewpoints, the eBooks, science in context, I think is an important one too, as well as I'm going to finish up with the newspaper database we have. And it's very quirky how you use it and how you search it and how it's going to work for you. Lucy and others, I apologize. I feel embarrassed when I'm in classes and it seems like I say database, database, database over and over like some sort of droning, horrible animal. But essentially, these are things we use every day. It's like Netflix or Hulu. They're just packages of electronic data or information or videos. Sometimes they have an overlap. Sometimes they don't. Some are prettier. Some will be nice notes go, hey, you love this movie, you're going to enjoy this one as well. And some of them you really have to dig. If you've ever used Pluto, which is free and very delicious, but it's really hard to search or use, and there's a reason it's free, but it is lovely if you kind of get the thing of it. But ours will be Gale Resources, Proquest, EBSCO, Next Libris, not as exciting as the others. And the anatomy of a database is no different than Netflix. We're going to have a search or searches. We're going to have different organizations or publications. We're going to have suggestions. Sometimes in the case of ours, there'll be citation suggestions. We will allow email downloads, full text. We'll have suggested searches, images, video, and all that madness. And within this, when you're doing your research, it helps to follow the CRAP test when you're putting together some of your words. Think about the currency. How new does it need to be? Relevancy, yes. The relevancy, that has to do with, are you answering your question? Are you including other ideas in it? Are the resources you have all focus on your research question? Accuracy and authority, sometimes I put together, but it has to do with who's put this information together, who they're connected to, do they have ethics, agreements, other things, and finally, purpose. Why was this information created? So when we're looking at the databases, these are the questions we'll be asking. I want to talk a little bit about, I might go forwards and then backwards, keywords. And keywords is really a big part of the research process. And I want to show you kind of what I do sometimes because you need to find some synonyms and antonyms, and that holds true even for phrases. When you have written out your research question, if you want to prove, I'm going to be using net neutrality, damages rural communities because it hinders their access to telemedicine, especially in terms of the hospitals closing in all sorts of rural areas. Those are kind of words I'm going to put into my search because net neutrality is a really huge topic. And then when I start adding in those keywords, I start bringing it down to something I can use. And each one of these databases they have a lot of value to give with these pieces. Brainstorm. Who are the advocates, the writers, the stakeholders, inventors, creators, defenders, organizations, associations that go around your topic? Sometimes that would also include legal or different types of acts or things that went through law and legislation. What? You will also need to define it and kind of using some of the words around it, how people refer to it in slang, how people refer to it in legalese, how people refer to it in different professions. Collect all those words. Kind of determine how you're going to look at it. Historically, immediacy, are you looking at the future, or kind of like all three at one time? Because that's going to also affect how you're looking for things. For instance, when you're looking for things in the future, I just popped right forward. The things in the future, you can like get predictions, analysis, projections, and those are really strong keywords to see how people think things are going to change. So it's a very interesting way also to kind of highlight your piece and sometimes show how people see different futures. How's it fit everyday life, business, ethical conversation, protest, initiatives, education, just some of the regular things that are around you every day. And if it's an acronym, search for the acronym and also search for the full word, like ACA is a search, and Affordable Care Act would also be a part of the search. And we'll bounce back here. If we're looking at Boolean searching, the way we could do that is in a search line, go ACA or Affordable Care Act, and you could just do that all in one search. Because amazingly, sometimes people use one thing and not the other, and then sometimes people be wildly looking for Obamacare, and that will show up, but that doesn't really cover everything. So really the perfect search line would be ACA or Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. And that would cover a great deal of ground when you're doing that kind of research. The and would be when you wanted Affordable Care Act in rural, something that helps people. This little line would be where it goes together. And if you want to put a not, that would get rid of things that don't really work, because something like net neutrality is huge. You may not want to go into different aspects of it, and you can get rid of those by just saying not bandwidths, for instance. Phrase searching cuts down on your noise. If I'm doing net neutrality, I'm going to put it in a phrase like these are here. And truncation, even as I'm typing my words, I start building them back so that I can get every possible suffix added on to the end of it. I'll back it as far as I can, like where it starts changing, and that's going to give me a lot of mileage. One of the ways, I'm going to flip something over here for you to see it. One of the ways I do this, let me go to Wikipedia. Yes, I do actually use Wikipedia. When I first start working on something, I might read something kind of general like net neutrality in the United States inside of Wikipedia. And I'm not using this as a resource because sometimes your professors don't allow it. But what I am using it for is I'm going through it, I'm looking for the words. This is going to help me out a lot with some of the acronym and full things that they mean. So I'll have these. If I'm over here typing net neutrality, I'm going to put it in quotes. If I'm going to use the term throttle, throttles, throttling, which is common, and a term about how a internet company may stop and start and hinder your information as an internet user. I'm going to put quotes around phrases, and I'm going to go ahead and start developing or statements like these two things mean sort of the same thing, so I can use these in one search line. I'm going to, again, put the truncation because net neutrality discriminates or may discriminate. I want to get discriminated, and discriminate all together. Get all those pieces. When we're talking about people, a Wikipedia piece is really good about mentioning the people. These happen to be the last 3 FCC chairmen of the FCC. Ajit Pai is the one that's most responsible for overturning or trying to overturn net neutrality. I think it's still in the court system. But when I have these people, I can actually use them in a search and find things that they've said for or against. So I have at least the last 3 FCC chairmen, and I collect other words that are used. I guess I throttled here a couple of times. And the antonym, when we're looking at net neutrality, I found in Wikipedia, would be the FCC Open Internet Order, where people are able to come in and monetize a system that wasn't previously monetized to this level. So I take the Wikipedia and I have this, and as I do my research, like if I'm in Proquest or something else, I keep adding to this so that my little notes are all ready to go. And it helps me get things done, and really get to the meat of the thing, which is finding the way to write it and put it all together and synthesize the information.
Hi, Rhonda. I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Recently, our teacher did mention that we are not not allowed to use Wikipedia. Can I
Right.
ask why? I understand it's not a legit resource, but why is it available but not a legit resource?
Well, it is it a legit resource? You can see how I just use it. I pull things from it and then I go
Mhm.
research those things. And I think it wouldn't show up in your works cited, but I think that what it does it very well. But the thing is like any of us could become people, and sometimes they change it overnight during the day, and the information
Oh,
isn't always correct, and it doesn't have gatekeepers like peer reviewers. Opposing viewpoints, when we run through that really fast, you'll see that it has on some sections, it has like an overview, and this overview is very much like Wikipedia. It's going to provide you that same gratification of, oh, I understand the meaning of this and how these things fit together in the chronology, but it's actually edited and somebody can't change it at midnight, which is one of the important things.
okay, I
I don't know
understand.
if you ever knew like Colbert, or like something happens in the news, people will jump on Wikipedia and start changing the information. It's kind of funny, and you don't want to get caught in that process, I guess. So it
Gotcha.
is good, it is useful. I mean, it's really amazing, frankly. It's like all the how-to YouTubes on the, of course, how-to YouTubes on YouTube, of course, but you know, there's always the possibility that's not going to go well, I guess, is what
True,
I'll say
true.
with that. But it is a very awesome thing, because at the end of it, let me like see if I can slide this baby back over. At the end of it, it has it does, because it does try to cite its work, because
Mhm.
sometimes people create fake ones. But if you were so inclined, you could go through and find these. Now, if you're using this is something written by Ajit Pai, the guy who changed it. If you're using this and you go in and look at this PDF, and you read this and you cite it as part of your work, that's not
Mhm.
using Wikipedia. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
You're using Wikipedia like a search device and not. So I think for those kinds of things, it's real. And certainly
Mhm.
if you clicked on this and it isn't what it said it was, and it's just pictures of crazy happy cats or something, you'll know,
Mm.
oh, somebody's joking with me here. This isn't real at
Yeah.
all. So yeah, I still think it's vastly useful. And I think what it does in explaining something rapidly, it gives you a chronology. And let me get out of there. It does that really good. And it's beautiful. I use it all the time for that. And in the real world, as a librarian, I'm supposed to be adding to it, because you as a person, when you're like working in did you say you're going into healthcare, for instance?
Yes, nursing.
Nursing, you might
Mhm.
find out that like, why isn't this nursing theorist in the Wikipedia? And you could
Mhm.
build that page and curate it and keep adding to it, and give you
Mhm.
a place in our whole information system, and that would be great. But unfortunately, somebody at night could get up and change something on it, and but you would have some indication of been changed, so you could go fix it. But it's an imperfect system, and as you know, not everybody checks their email,
True.
which is terrible. I think, like, I don't know, I was looking at my email today. I'm like, oh my goodness, how do I know if there's anything in here that's real? All right, so we're going to go through these sort of fast. Did I spell this wrong? Let's spell this right. It's Viewpoints.
Oh, that's right.
Sorry about that. It looks kind of French that way. Um, so I'll kind of go through that fast. Proquest, EBSCO eBooks, Science and Context, and Newsbank. And each of these have a specific reason I want to go into them. So let me get my Big Bend. So you know how to get to the library,
Mhm.
bigbend.edu. Go here, databases A to Z. And I move these to the left-hand side so that they come up first on your phone if you're
Mhm.
mobile, but all this stuff follows right after if this
Mm,
isn't what you want. But if this is like you're on your phone, this is going to be super fast. So opposing
nice.
viewpoints is here. We're going to do just a little net neutrality. It's going to come as soon as I start typing, it's going to come up. When you see that it's highlighted, that's going to have that Wikipedia-like piece at the top. It means it's one of the major points. So if we were to go through this, read more, some of these are moving very slow today, so we might have to imagine what it might say. No, it's all here. Yes, if we look at this, it actually has a lot of overlap with the Wikipedia. It's talking about the repeal, it's talking about BitTorrent, Comcast, and it's because it is pretty much the same story, but this piece is going to look much better in your works cited
Mhm.
paper, and this was overviewed by editors and people who don't
Mm,
change it at midnight.
gotcha.
The next thing it's going to provide are academic journals. If you haven't figured out how to narrow it down or you're looking for other words, and this is really good for, this is awesome that we're making more money on the internet, or net neutrality, like this one is bad for us. And this talks about it, how we should support it. So it has like a bunch of different points of view, none of which all go together, which is really good when you're writing a well-rounded paper. And when you read it, it is available to you in full text. You don't have to select full text in this one. That's why it makes it what you see is what you get. If you're trying to put together a paper rapidly, this really is built for your success. When you come up here to the little cite button, it gives you a citation.
Mhm,
You in the future will be using APA 7th edition, not this one, but if you're in English class,
mhm.
you will have to use the MLA 8. So make sure you switch it based on what you need to use. That's like an operator beware. Quickly now going to go into Proquest. I think we discussed this a little bit before, but I'm going to go through it with this particular thing. Um, I'm going to take it into the advanced search. I already have my thing here, which I didn't realize, net neutrality, and I put in a word rural because one of the concerns is that people outside the cities will not be able to get the internet because there's no profit motive in it. For this, I always select full text because what you see is what you get in that part. This is a massive database. It's much larger and more detailed than opposing viewpoints. It's going to include the same things, but they're going to be more specific, more varied. We have newspapers, magazines, and the whole thing. You can select the publication date. For this, the currency of this is it's been working in starts and fits, like it sort of like jumps ahead and like comes back a little. So the last 5 years probably for this topic will be good because right now it's kind of died down a little bit, but it'll start hitting, I think, the papers again this summer. It has to do with how it's moving through the court system. So you can use this to make sure your time period's appropriate. So this is going to bring up the things that have rural America and net neutrality. And this is like, what? Not everybody was included in this debate, so this might be something I want to look at. This is going to be from a news service. So it's going to be fairly brief. It's not a scholarly article. It will have some words that I might want to look at. I don't have in my keywords, for example, broadband internet types of things. And this is really like a really big deal in rural communities. And also it talks about whether or not that, small businesses also need the internet. So I might kind of add small businesses and rural into my research so I can read through this fairly quickly and pick up on some other ideas. They also have some subjects I may add to my list, and they also suggest other things I might look at. And kind of as I started working on it, I was thinking, net neutrality, too huge for me to even write about my lifetime, but net neutrality's issues in terms of healthcare in rural areas is actually very important, very well written about, and a small enough topic for me to deal with. So I kind of use my search to make my search better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it builds into a nice little, I don't know. It was beautiful. I feel like I could do this talk now. Like I didn't even realize it was a problem. So I don't know. As you can tell, I love researching. I know students love finding and librarians love searching, and we'll always have that fundamental clash. But it's very exciting when you see a database like this one just give you ideas and keep you rolling with your research and help you tighten up your search, which is really important. I wanted to make sure that you see our ebook collection. I was laughingly referring this today because I'm one of those students that waits to the last minute when I have things that are due. Like Sunday, 2 a.m., I'm up working on it. And this sort of thing is really good because you can't get into the library to get a hold of a book. But if you go to the eBooks and go search here directly, I don't like to search through the library catalog, and you can search this full text. I'm going to hit the advanced search. If you go here and you click on this, you could search all the text of the book instead of like a title and an abstract. So if you have something that you're really struggling to find, it's good. If you have something that's well covered, it will drive you crazy and it's just too much. But I'm going to put in net neutrality and I'm going to put in rural. and see how this goes. And I put the search in the quotation marks to search as a phrase. I use the and because I wanted to get the things in between them. And this talks about the rural West, and apparently something is in there. So I'm going to put this. Here is how I sometimes lose students because they go for the full download and it asks for a sign-in. The sign-in is up here, and it's like the one you use when you sign in for the Microsoft products. You have to create your own, but this PDF works just as fine. And further, it has a search piece. It wasn't working earlier today, but I'm just going to put in neutrality. Oh, it's working perfectly. And you'll see I don't have to read all 500 pages. It gives me enough context to know that this might be where I want to go. Unfortunately, it's in the references. Oh, and this has a nice map. So I can actually use this to be able to go through the book quicker than I normally would. And most importantly, if you work like I do, and I hope you don't because it's so stressful. And if you waited to 2 a.m. to write your paper that's due at 8, it's really helpful to have this access and be able to search at full text. I'm going to science and context next. Rolling right down. It's a lot like opposing viewpoints. And it's going to have what you see is what you get. It's going to have a large amount of topics for you to use. It's going to treat science in all sorts of different ways, as a business, as an ethical issue, and all those other types of things. So even here, especially for my topic, I should find some pieces. I'm not going to have that big Wikipedia-like piece because that's not major in the sciences, but this talks about how this could harm research. So even though they're the same database publisher, it's kind of like Hulu and Netflix, they still might have some different articles or different ways to look at things. So I like to cover, like if when you have a topic that has all these edges, it's ethics, it's education, I like, and actually it's science, it's health, it's a little bit of everything. I like to go to the different databases that might have a different nuance or a different way of looking at it. And just like opposing viewpoints, what you see is what you get, it's here, and use the citation up here to get your citation that you'll copy and correct and make sure it's the right style. And it will also have related subjects. So apparently scientists are having a big issue, as well as people in healthcare, about the net neutrality issue. So that would be very useful for my research. And finally, I'm going to end with the oddest one. Did you ever take journalism in college or anything? I mean, not college, you're in there now, but like when you're in a junior high or public school?
I have not.
There's a quirky thing about newspapers, and it's true even now, even as they're sort of, well, not falling apart, sort of falling apart, becoming different, I guess we'll say. I want to look at more search options. When you write a newspaper article, um, there's something called the lead paragraph, and pretty much you try to get the most information you can into that first paragraph, and subsequent paragraphs, the first one needs to stand on its own, and the subsequent paragraphs support it. But if someone starts cutting for space and they just end up with that one paragraph, the story should still be good. So if you were to search here in full text, you would get total absolute junk from everywhere, because it's a newspaper database. It comes out every day. It covers the entire world. It's like entirely very massive. All text here, unless you were looking for one very strange word, would overload you. The search you use here is lead or first paragraph. And we can see I've already been here. Again, very important to put your phrases in the quotes in a database like this, which is monstrous. This also lets us look for other things like the source or other words that might be in there. We can also narrow it down to a place. The source would be the actual name. So if I was interested in net neutrality in Washington State, I might take a big city, which is well represented by a larger newspaper. In this case, I'll just put Seattle. And I think that's the Seattle Times. And this way, I can take my piece, which I've looked at on a large way. I've looked at the chronology, I've looked at the history, I looked at how scientists and healthcare and rural people are worried about this issue. And now, using Newsbank, I could look at how people are looking at it locally in my own community. And I can understand it in different ways. We could see that I think one of our senators is really fighting for net neutrality. These are the people in Washington state that are challenging it. We're talking about some of the tech companies that are inside of Washington state that's standing with the people, so to speak, and also trying to keep it. So by taking this one topic and really working and massaging and pulling out those keywords and concepts and breaking it down and taking it through those 5 different databases, we can come up with a really well-rounded, well-founded, and even locally sourced piece of research. And that completes the whole 5 database run. And I hope it made sense why I chose those 5. Would that illuminate anything in a different way?
Yes.
Oh, and welcome, Sylvia. I just saw you there. So, do you guys have any questions?
I do not.
That is awesome. Not awesome. Questions are awesome, frankly. And I'm going to put in, sorry, I'm going to put a link as soon as it stops jumping around on me. I'm going to put a link in here.